As we go on to our last section of our class, we're doing division now of polynomials. Now we've done a little bit of this already, but we're looking for the strategy of how to get some of these set up. Well, what I would do, I take a binomial divided by a monomial, and I'm going to change it to this. 10x squared, x to the 6, I should say, over 5x to the second minus 40x to the third over 5x to the second. So what I'm doing is I'm taking each term of the numerator and put it over our common denominator, and I'll set these up. So now that we've set them up, it's just a matter of simplifying. This will be 2x to the fourth, watching the signs, minus 8x. This will be a negative 3, and here the 8 of the 7's just cancel out completely. And I put this plus between them, but it's negative 10 over negative 2, which will give me a positive 5. But notice now you have a 8 to the 5th, 8 to the 7th, so you do get something left in the denominator, 8 to the 2nd. And here we simplify, watching the signs carefully. Positive 7 x to the second, positive 3x, and this is just a plain positive 3. Alright, so you can check these down below, but notice it is okay to have something left in the denominator, and if you have something divided by something, if you were to have something like x to the 5th over x to the 5th, that would be a 1, not a 0. Sometimes students say, well, that's just disappeared. No, there's a 1 there. So keep that in mind. All right, let's go on. Now we're going to do some what are called long division. That is when you have a binomial that you'll divide into a trinomial. Now let's give you a little example of something. If we had 3 divided into 28. Very simple. Now, what would we do? We'd say, how many times does 3 go into 28? Well, you might say 9. Well, 3 times 9 is 27. So that's good. So we'd put a 9 up there. We go 3 times 9 is 27. Now the key is, what do I do here? Well, I have to subtract. And in algebra, we indicate subtraction by taking this positive 27 and changing its sign. So this is the big difference that we're going to have to do in these. Once we put our subtraction bar here, that we're going to subtract this, we have to change that sign, and we get a 1 there. So this would be 9 and 1/3 as a improper, well, a mixed number. As an improper fraction, it would have been 28 over 3, which becomes this. All right, a little bit of background. Now, the first thing we have to do here is to set these up in our long division pattern. So we take our denominator, put it out here on the side, and we want these in descending powers, and we just write it there. And we'll do this one here too. M plus 5 divided into, and these are all descending powers. And you should be writing this over on the other side here. Because we're going to show you a pattern of how to do this. Okay, now, how many times does x go into x to the second? Well, if you're not sure, you can use this technique. Just take x to the second and divide it by x, and it goes x times. We then take our x and multiply it by this. X times x is x to the second. 5 times x is a positive 5x. Now notice we have our like term columns. Now what I'm going to do is put a line under that, but now what do I have to do to each of these terms? Change the signs. So now this cancels out, which is what I want, and this becomes 4x. I bring down my 20. Now I have 4x there. How many times does 4x go into there? Well, just divide it. The x's cancel out, and I'm left with a plus 4. Now, x times 4 will usually give us this term, 4x. 5 times 4 is a positive 20. Now, when I bring my line, what do I have to do to these? Change the sign, and everything cancels out. So this is my answer. Now if I took this and multiplied it by this by FOIL, I would get this. A way to check your work. Remember, each example on your test is worth 5 points, and you definitely will have a long division on your test and on your final. Okay, this one's already set up. So we have here 6m to the third divided by this m. We're wondering how many times does m go into 6m to the third? And it goes 6m squared times. Because now m times 6m squared is 6m cubed. We then take this number and multiply it by that and get plus 30m squared. Now what do? Well, when we put our line, this is critical. We have to change our signs. This cancels out, and here we end up with a negative 4m squared. We now bring down our negative 17m. Now, how many times does m go into that? Well, put it over here. Negative 4m squared divided by m. And it's a negative 4m times. Simplifying this gives us this, that will now multiply this times this and get this, negative 4m squared. Now, positive 5 times a negative 4 gives us a negative 20m. Now I'm going to take my line. What do I do to my signs? Change them. These cancel out, and this now becomes 3m. I now bring down my plus 15. Now m goes into 3m times. Mentally, you just put a plus 3 there. M times 3 is 3m. 5 times 3 is 15. Now when I put my line there, what do I do to these terms? Change the signs and add, and there's 0 remainder. So again, you're learning the process, and hopefully we've given you some hints. So on the left side of your booklet, carefully copy these down, and as classwork, give them a shot, and I will work them out too. Well, so that it's not too complicated, let's do this first one. So, negative 5x will go into there a positive 4x squared times. And if you're not sure, just do it over here. Negative 20x to the third divided by a negative 5x. So this gives you 4 positive 4x squared. Then you multiply that by each term. Got a negative 20 and a negative 8. Change your signs. These cancel out. Gives me with a 25x squared. Bring this down. Now I have 25x squared divided by a negative 5x. Well, that's going to go a negative 5x times. Then I multiply it by each of these terms, bring it down, change the signs. Now these will always cancel out here. And then you're left with this that I bring to 13 down. And then we have 5x goes into a negative 5x, or divided by how many times? Well, a negative 1. Multiply this, I get this, change the signs. Now here's critical, because I have a positive 13 and a negative 2 gives me a positive 11. This is my remainder that I put up here in my answer as 11 over this. Now keep in mind that as I check this on your blue sheets and your final exam, depending how much of this you have right, having it all right, that's great. But I can give you partial credit. Let's say you only mess up on the remainder. Then instead of losing a whole point, you only lose 2/10 of a point. But you've written it out, you've shown the skill, just made a little error here. Okay, let's give you some time to do letter D. In fact, I'll do some of it live here. So we have m times 4m squared gives me 4m cubed. That's what I want there. Now 4 times 4m squared is 16m squared. I've put my line. Now I have to change my signs. These cancel out. I end up with a negative 2m squared. I bring down my negative 5m. Now m is going to go into there, negative 2m times. M times this gives me that. 4 times this gives me a negative 8m. I make a line and change my signs. So this cancels out, and I end up with a 3m here, and I bring down my plus 12. Now m goes into there, 3m, 3 times. M times this is 3m. 4 times 3 is 12. Draw the line, change my signs, and this all cancels out, so there's no remainder. Now another skill in setting this up. Let's set this up together. So we have x minus 3 divided into, now we have x to the fourth, but there is no x to the third. So it's telling us we have to put in there missing place values. The way we do that, we go plus 0 x to the third plus 0 x to the second plus 0x, and then we can put in our 81. So when we don't have powers of our variable, we put placeholders so that when we do the division, we have like term columns that we can fill in. So let's work on this one. X goes into there, we know x to the third times. X times this is x to the fourth. A negative 3 times this is a negative 3x to the third. Now we put our line. What do we do to the signs? Change them. So this is now 3x to the third. Bring this that has no value down. X goes into there, plus 3x squared times. Now x times this is 3x cubed. This times this is a negative 9x squared. What do? We bring in our subtraction by changing the signs. This cancels out and this becomes a 9x squared. We bring down our no value term and x goes into there, plus 9x times. This gives me a 9x squared. This times this is a negative 27x. Change our signs. This becomes 27x. Bring down my 81. Now x goes into there 27 times. X times 27 is 27x. And 3 times 27 is a negative 81. We change our signs. This becomes a negative, this becomes a plus, and we end up with a plus 162. And our answer then is all this plus 162 over x to the fourth plus, oh, I'm doing the wrong one here, over this x minus 3. That's better. All right, very tedious, lots of steps. This would be a challenge. All right, and doing our last example of the course, as we look at this, what we want to do is set it up properly. So we're going to go negative 5x plus 2 that we will divide into this, but we have to put this in descending order. So it's a negative 25x to the third. Then this one, negative 15x squared. Negative 5x, and then a positive 9. So again, it's critical. There are no missing places, but we have them in descending orders of our degree. Okay, let's have you work on this, and I'll work on it too. Now, perhaps the strategy for doing these, as you change the signs, if you're doing it in pencil, is to physically erase the signs, put the new signs in, because you can easily get confused. Here, this is a negative 25 after this positive 10x squared changes. And then I've shown the changing of the signs, but you have a remainder then of 3. That is plus 3 over negative 5x plus 2. Now, these take a while. Again, it would be worth your while to double check your work You're going to have one of these on your chapter test and definitely on the final. So give it your best shot. And the nice thing about any of these is you can always go back and watch part of it again and check your work carefully. So I have one other little thing I want to say to you that I've put here, that in MathLab there is a homework assignment that is 100 questions. That is a good review for your final exam. I made a video of this in which I divided it into 5 sections. Sort of each section is one chapter, and I work out every example. Now as you do it, you may not need to do all 100. If you want to see how one is done, the videos you can advance, forward, or reverse. But again, you want to give it your best shot. Look over your notes, look over your booklet, look over your homework log, and good luck on your Chapter 5 test. And I will put a link here to the test that's in our booklet as well if you'd like to try that. Okay.